Chapter 14. My dear God. Jessica gasped. I don't know what to say. The news that Susan had been engaged to David had been shocking enough. Finding out that her sister was pregnant when she was killed added another level of sadness to an already terrible tragedy. I have thought about it a lot, David said quietly. It's been really hard to deal with. She would be 9 years old now, a fourth grader. I don't know why, I just have always thought the baby would have been a girl. We had already thought about names. Susan wanted to name the baby Grace if it was a girl, or Andrew if it was a boy. Grace was my grandmother's name, and Andrew was my grandfather's. Jessica spoke in a voice no louder than a whisper. Yeah, I know, David replied. Sometimes I wonder what she would be like. Would she like Susan, or would she look like me? Perhaps a little of both. There are times late at night, after I have had one of those dreams, that I lay there waiting for sleep and I think about the way things would have been, the way they should have been. Jessica looked at David carefully. Tell me about the dreams. David's eyes shuffled around the room, and he shifted slightly on the couch cushions. They used to come more often than they do now. Usually I see myself driving the car the night of the crash, heading north out of Columbia. I can feel the bumpiness of the road. I can hear the hum of the tires as the car rides along in the night. The dashes of the yellow lines seem almost to mesmerize me. All of the sudden, there are lights flashing ahead of me. Somebody's coming over into my lane, heading right towards me. I turn the wheel as quick as I can, but it's never ever quick enough. Jessica's stomach turned as she listened to him recount what was almost an exact copy of her own nightmares. I was supposed to take her home that night, he said softly. A friend of mine asked me if I could fill in for him at work, and Susan said she would get a ride from your parents. It would give her a chance to break the news to them gently. I have never been able to forgive myself for not taking her home. We would have left earlier, long before that truck crossed the center lane. Your parents, Susan and the baby would all be alive today if I had just done what I had originally planned, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Jessica reached out and put her hand on his. It's not your fault. There is no way you could have imagined what would happen. None of us could. I have always blamed myself for not being there with them in the car, too, she confided as David looked up in confusion. I was a cheerleader, and we had a split squad. Because we had so many games we only had to go to half of them. It wasn't one of the games I was supposed to do, but a friend of mine wanted to go out with this guy she knew from another school, and I switched games with her. I should have been there in the car with them. If I was, I always sat on the right side where the truck hit. Susan would have been okay, just like Philip was. It should have been me sitting there. I have dreams too, she continued, just like yours. I saw a counselor years ago, and she said that I was feeling survivor's remorse or something like that. I think she really wanted to help me, but there is nothing that can be done about it. What happened can't be changed or wished away. I always wondered why it was her instead of me that died. Now I know that there was a baby too. They sat together in silence, holding hands, but both feeling very alone. David was roused from his dreams by the thumping of heavy objects on the floor by the bed. He looked up with sleep in his eyes to see the curious face of a very fit, attractive young man. Oops. Sorry to wake you. I didn't expect anybody to be in my room. The young man said sheepishly. I'm Philip, and you are? David Miller, he said, trying to sit up. Philip sat down on the chair. Well, David, it's nice to see a man sleeping in this house while I am away. But shouldn't you be sleeping in my sister's bed? David offered the younger man a pinched lip smile. Isn't that rather a personal question? Well, you are sleeping in my bed, Philip said with a devilish grin. I think I deserve the right to at least one personal question. David held up the cast on his broken arm, and winced as pain shot down the entire left side of his body. After taking a moment to recover, he pointed to the arm with his good hand. Your sister was kind enough to help me out. I couldn't really take care of myself the last couple of days. She's always feeding strays. Philip beamed. Well, you seem to be wide awake. My work here is done. I think I will jog over to the paper and give the old sis a surprise. I am 2 days early, She didn't know I got extra leave. Well, David said, sporting his own devilish grin. Enjoy your morning run. Be sure to say hi to Jess for me when you see her at the paper. Will do, he said. See you later. David smiled despite the pain as he got out of bed. That boy was going to have a very rude surprise, and it served him right. He looked across the hallway at Jessica's empty bedroom, and he noticed how soft, warm and loving the bed in that room looked. You walked up the hill. David, are you out of your mind? Likely, he said, but it's time to get to work. We are going to have company soon, and we have to get the place ready to go. You are in no condition to work. She frowned. We are not having company that soon. Yes, you are. A voice rang out from the doorway. Philip. Jessica ran across the room and met her brother's open arms. He lifted her off her feet and twirled her around as if she was a paper doll. What are you doing here? Thanksgiving break is a long time off. I came home a couple of days early. I got some leave, he said with a grin. I wanted to surprise you. You did, a nice surprise. You surprised me more, sis, he said. I found a strange man sleeping under your roof. He turned and grinned at David. Hey, thanks for giving me the heads up about Jess and the paper. I went over there and looked like a complete idiot. Good. 1. Jessica frowned towards her employer and houseguest. You saw him and didn't tell him. Nope. He seemed to like surprises, so who am I to disappoint? David quipped. Who are you indeed? Philip asked. That's a long story, Jessica said. A very, very long story. She glanced over at David thoughtfully, eyes filled with recognition. I will tell you all about it soon. First, go home and change into some old clothes, and you can come back here and help me paint these walls. Earn yourself a few extra dollars. David's paying and needs all the help he can get. In more ways than one, David added in a careful tone. I guess I never really thought about it much. Philip said later, as the three of them sat around a demolished pizza. She said that she had some big news to share with everybody, and she wanted to wait until she got home so she could tell us all at once. Didn't say what it was about, but she was really excited. With a glance at David, he continued, I don't remember everything that night. A lot of what went on is a blur, but I remember that she was really happy. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the accident. Jessica stopped short and considered. We wanted you to know. So what time do we get to work in the morning? Philip asked. You only have a few days break. You should take the time to kick back. David said. I can imagine the pressure you are under at the academy. You should get some rest. Rest is for wimps, Philip said with a smile. It's overrated. You need the help. I don't know a thing about working on houses, but unlike some people in this room I do have 2 good arms, a strong back and a weak mind. I bet I can make myself useful. Well, David considered. I should say I really can use the help. Then it's settled, Philip rumbled as he stood to clear the table. The only thing is, I have been dreaming about my own bed, so I am going to throw you out of my room tonight. I guess that means you are going to have to sleep with Jess. Both Jessica and David turned bright red. Jessica sputtered. You can stay in my parents' room. It's all made up. I think I should just go back up to my place, David said. It's just a broken arm. I can manage. Broken arm, cracked ribs, bruises and scrapes everywhere. Jessica scolded. No, not happening. You are staying here for a while longer, and that's all there is to it. Yes, ma'am, he said with a small smile. You two should both learn those words. Jessica commanded. Those are very good, important words. Yes, ma'am, that's a darned good thing for a man to learn how to say. Yes, ma'am. The men nearly shouted in unison. Playfully, Jessica started barking orders. Philip, get those dishes done, then go get your quarters squared away. David, go sit on the couch and write down tomorrow's projects. Yes, ma'am. The two replied together. I could learn to like this. Jessica smiled. So are you sleeping with him, sis? Philip asked, paint roller in hand. No, and watch out, you are starting to drip there. Came a huffy reply from his older sibling. He's good looking, better looking than Kevin. Philip offered. Right now, a diseased river slug is better looking to me than Kevin is. She snapped. I would shoot him, but I think that's still against the law. It might be. Philip laughed. I am really surprised at how Kevin turned on you. I always thought he was a nice guy. Lawyers are not generally nice people. His sister replied. Charming, yes. Engaging, yes. At the heart of it, though, they rather like vultures waiting around to pick over a kill. That's a little harsh, don't you think? I know some lawyers that are nice folks. There is this major at the academy that I have in a history class who's a lawyer, and she is really nice. Hard grader, though. Well, some lawyers may be nice, but Kevin is a snake. He tried to kill David, and the Ole Boy network around here won't do a darn thing about it. The sheriff, the lawyers, the judges, they all play golf together. None of them would ever go against one of their own, she exclaimed bitterly. I guess Kevin just kinda snapped or something. Philip considered. He doesn't like to lose, and it must have bugged him to see you in love with another man. What? She nearly shouted. Oh, get real, sis. A blind man could see that a mile away. I don't care what you, or a blind man, thinks that he sees from a mile away. Jessica snapped. But if you think I am in love, then looks can be deceiving. You may be able to fool some people with that line of baloney. Philip replied, but not me. You are head over heels in love with this fellow, it's as plain as the paint on this wall here. Jessica stared at her younger brother, and realized for the first time that he was no longer a boy, but had now become a grown man. I wonder, he asked, if David is trying to pretend that he is not totally in love with you too. Things are on schedule, Dad, everything is looking good. David spoke into the phone, watching his two helpers as they painted the walls and talked. No, I am not going to be home for Thanksgiving. I have to keep working. He continued. I will call Mom later and tell her myself. Yes, I know it's only a 4-hour drive, but take that times 2 and I have lost a whole day's work, and I can't afford that right now. You can miss Thanksgiving. Randolph Miller warned, but you had better be there for our 40th wedding anniversary in a couple of weeks, or you will break your mother's heart. We are eating at Benito's, it's all set up. You want me to get you a date? I could call Kathy for you. I am sure she would love to go with you. I will be there, don't worry about that. David said, considering the evening. He looked at the lovely young woman, who was painting the walls of his dreams. You don't need to call Kathy. I am sure I can find a date here. Without further explanation, he turned off the phone.